Hey everyone, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel. This week I am back with a video that is less ranty than last week's video, but it is a more personal video. This video was inspired by a few other videos that I have seen on YouTube. I will leave them linked in the description below, but this is going to be about different things that I wish I knew before I started practicing witchcraft. If you've been here for a while, you will have known that I have been practicing witchcraft for a really long time, basically since I was a young teenager, and I'm gonna be 30 this year. So today I'm gonna go through 5 things that I wish I knew before I started practicing witchcraft. The first one is that less is okay. When I first started learning about witchcraft, it was through the lens of Wicca, and all of the books and all of the sources that were available online talked about having all of these different things for your altar space. You needed an altar cloth, you need an athame, you need a chalice, you need a cauldron, you need a million different herbs, you need 50 different candles of all different colors, you need a bell, you need, a staff, a sword, all of this stuff. And as a teenager learning about witchcraft with no money and no job, that was really daunting. And it's something that I had kind of internalized for a while, that in order to do witchcraft quote unquote the right way, you had to have all of these different tools at your disposal for whenever you might actually need them. Over time, this led me to buy things that I never really used. And there's no sense in buying something if you're not going to use it. It's just going to collect dust. So that's the very first one. That's very simple. I wish I would have known that less is okay, and all of the tools in all of these books are not requirements. They're just suggestions, and that you should only buy them if you're actually going to use them. Number 2 is one that I actually hear a lot from other people who learned about witchcraft in the 90s. And this is that Wicca isn't the only way. And this is no knock on Wicca. I was Wiccan for a long time, and it served me well throughout the whole time that I was Wiccan. But eventually it is something that I fell out of practice with. I don't want to say I grew out of it, because then that makes it sound like a phase. But it wasn't a phase, it was a belief system that I held. But over time, my beliefs did shift and morph, and I became connected to Irish paganism. But I feel like now this might not be such a big issue, because there is so much more information available freely and in books. But I wish I would have known as a teenager that Wicca wasn't the only option. That it served as a good starting point for me, and it served me well. I was very happy with Wicca, but over time, as I grew and as my beliefs changed, I didn't really have a direction to move in, because all I had ever known was Christianity and Wicca. And it wasn't until I started digging deeper into other YouTube channels and reading more books and moving outside of sources that were only Wiccan that I really discovered for myself that there was more out there, and that there was an entirely different way of practicing witchcraft that was outside of Wicca. Number 3 is that I wish I would have known and understood the importance of daily practice. As I have gotten older and more busy in my life, I'm a mom, I run the YouTube channel, I run a small business. If I would have developed that discipline and that understanding that daily practice was important when I was younger, I think it wouldn't be so much of an issue for me now. And daily practice is going to look different for everyone. I might end up doing a video on daily practice specifically, but for me, daily practice is extremely important. And that's not really something that was talked about in books and sources that I was reading when I first started learning about Wicca and witchcraft. It was more about celebrating the Sabbats and the Esbats and honoring the seasonal transitions. But there really wasn't anything about doing something every single day to grow your practice and to grow yourself spiritually so that you can get better. You can't get better at something if you don't practice. I'm going through this right now with relearning how to play the flute. If I don't practice, I'm never going to remember anything and I'm never going to get better. The same is true for witchcraft. If you don't actually do it, then you're not going to get better at it. You're not going to grow your intuition and grow your spirituality. Now, I want to reiterate that daily practice looks different for everyone, and some people can do daily practice, some people can't. That's not really what I'm talking about right now. But for me, I wish I would have known the importance and the significance that daily practice would play in my life before I started witchcraft. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Number 4 is that it isn't always pretty. Now, I started learning witchcraft in the age of, oh my gosh, there really wasn't even any social media at that point. I think MySpace had just become a thing. So there wasn't any Instagram, there wasn't Facebook, but I still internalized the whimsy and the fairy tale side of the explanations from everything that I was reading. It's taken me a long time to move out of that because as I was learning, it was the whimsy and the wildness. But then getting older and social media becoming a thing, that whimsy and wildness in the descriptions with words moved to whimsy and wildness and aesthetics with social media. And it's a trap that a lot of people have fallen into. Social media is fake. Social media is a blip in someone's life that you just happen to see online, or it's a completely staged photograph because it looks pretty, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but we need to be aware of what we're consuming and how we're consuming it, and we need to have that healthy relationship with social media. And as someone who has gone through some traumatic experiences and who has used the internet as an escape, developing that healthy relationship with social media is an ongoing process. And I still fall into it sometimes where I see pictures on Instagram or I see videos that other people are sharing and I think like, oh, my practice doesn't look like that. I must be doing something wrong. Even though I've been doing this for so long, that's where my brain defaults to. And I think if I would have developed a healthy relationship with the aesthetic side of witchcraft versus what is actually real is not the right word. What is my reality, that's a better phrase, then it wouldn't be so easy for me to fall back into those negative thought patterns. So yeah, something that I wish I would have known is that what I was going to see on social media and on the internet in the future was not real, and that witchcraft isn't always going to be pretty and soft, and it has its bite and it's got its dangerous aspects. I think that's also something that I wish I would have known too. Number 5 is you probably don't need that book. This one came from my own experience, but it also came from last week's video and the rant that I went on. Books aren't a necessity. We get caught up in consuming more information and learning absolutely everything we can, which is great when it's great. But as a child or as a teenager, trying to learn all of this information and wanting to get my hands on the next book and the next best thing and all the words from all the authors put me in a cycle for a little bit of constantly reading and consuming new knowledge, but not actually doing anything. And for me, if I'm stuck in a cycle of reading and reading and reading and reading, then that puts my actual practice on the back burner because I'm consumed by the books that I'm reading. So yeah, I wish I would have realized that when I was first learning witchcraft, is that those books aren't a necessity. Are they helpful? Absolutely. Can they teach you new things? I would hope so. I would hope that would be why you were reading a book. But as someone who didn't know anything about witchcraft beforehand and who wanted to consume all the information, that's the trap that I fell into, wanting to buy every single book out there. And I have a bonus one, something that I wish I knew before starting witchcraft, and a lot of people can probably relate to it. Witches love jars. I wish I would have known before practicing witchcraft that I would become a jar hoarder. I have some jars here behind me that I got to keep some herbs in, but I also have an entire section of cabinets in my kitchen dedicated to keeping glass jars from like pasta sauce and jelly, because one day I'll find a use for those jars. Having known that beforehand would have been nice. I think just because I would have saved more jars. I would have more jars today if I would have known that witches love jars, and I would develop an affinity for keeping glass jars. Then I would have more glass jars. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was entertaining and gave you a peek into my thought processes and the way my brain works. This kind of turned into not necessarily a what I wish I knew before practicing witchcraft, but more of a what I wish I knew when I started practicing witchcraft, which I think they can be kind of similar. So let me know in the comments below what you wish you would have known before practicing witchcraft, or while you were first learning about witchcraft and how to practice witchcraft. And let me know too if you are also a hoarder of jars, and I will see you in my next video.